Hey everybody, what's going on? Brendan Miller here, back with another video. I am super excited about today's video because today I'm going to be taking a look at some of these budget swim bait options that are available on Amazon. I've been poking around on Amazon for a while looking for fishing lures, and I keep getting recommended these hard jointed swim baits that are actually quite budget friendly. So today I want to take a look at these and see if they're any good. If you've been exposed to the fishing scene for any period of time, you know that swim baits are very effective baits. The only downside is swim baits tend to be very expensive, especially the hard jointed ones. They can run you as much as $30 per bait, which is quite pricey when it comes to filling your tackle box. But recently I have gotten a ton of recommendations on Amazon for these knockoff Chinese hard jointed swim baits, and according to the reviews I've seen, they actually seem to be pretty good. So like I mentioned, I was on Amazon and I bought actually 4 different packs of these budget swim baits right here. Alright, so the first one I picked up right here is this one. It is by Bass Dash, which I've never heard of in my life. It is made in China, and it is a little bluegill imitation right here, as you can see. All right, so this bait runs you around $8 on Amazon, which isn't a terrible price for a swim bait like this. However, I was expecting the swim bait to be a lot bigger, especially for the price point, but that does not mean that this bait is not useful. It'll be interesting to see once this bait is put in the water whether or not it's worth that $8 price point. One of the main things that inspired me and drew me to make this video is the fact that you can pick up these ultra budget friendly hard swim baits that are multi-jointed in like these bulk packages for a reasonable price. So without further ado, let's jump into the next pack right here. These are Transcend fishing lures right here, and these are a little bit different design. These have more of a traditional minnow creek chub design, so that makes them a little bit longer. And these baits have 7 jointed moving parts on them, so in theory they should have a really good swimming action. These 3 cost me around $15 on Amazon, which is around $5 a piece, which is still a very good price for these swim baits. Granted, if they work, that is. All right, let's pop them open and take a look. The only way to tell if these baits are worth it, however, is to see what they look like in the water. But just upon first initial inspection, I'm really liking the action of these baits. They have a nice, very floppy, limber action. And like I said, there's like 7 jointed pieces in this thing. So in theory, it should swim really well. The hooks on these things are actually quite sharp, a lot sharper than the last one here. So that is good. And the overall construction feels sturdy. It feels well built. So I bought 3 different colors of these baits. This one right here is more of a traditional shiner right there. I think it's an emerald shiner. I could be wrong on that, but that's what that looks like. And then this one is more of a gold shiner. It's got a little more of a gold fleck to it. And then we have this one right here, which is a really interesting color. I believe this is supposed to imitate a dice. I could be wrong about that. I'm not like a minnow expert, but I think this is supposed to imitate a dice minnow, which is very cool. If these baits are effective, I could see them being very useful for fishing for pike. I've been doing a lot of pike fishing this year, and one of the things that's really effective is minnow-like swim baits with a really lifelike action. So if these are any good in the water, that is definitely what I'll be using them for, targeting some big northern pike. All right, moving on to the next batch that I bought here. This is by What a Lure, and this is a 5-piece hard swim bait set right here. I'm not sure why there's a leopard on the front. Maybe just aesthetics. It does look kind of cool, to be honest with you, but leopards really have nothing to do with fishing. But nevertheless, this is their virtual lure, and it says, "Start your legend of fishing." I guess that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna start a legend of fishing. That's gonna be fun. All right, there's some specifications on the back real quick. It's got 3D vivid eyes, it has sharp hooks, and it has a steel ball inside, and it has an attach diama? I can't read that right. I'm not sure what that word is. There's an attachment thing in the bait. Like I mentioned, this is a 5-piece right here, and the price on these things is very good. You'll pay $12 for a 5-piece set of these baits. That's like $2 and some change for each bait, which is very good. Hopefully they have a good action in the water. All of these hard lures have this like 3D scanned fish texture on them. I think it actually comes off a real fish, which is very cool. But again, like I said, these long minnows right here definitely have a higher level of detail than these ones right here. But granted, these are fairly cheap, so it shouldn't be too big of an issue. But overall, first impressions are actually very good. The baits have a nice limber action in the water. They feel, again, very well built, like like the other ones, and the hooks actually feel decently sharp, so that is a plus. All right, so let's go over the colors real quick. First of all, we have a gold shiner right here, which actually, looking at this, the level of detail on this one looks very, very good compared to the first one that I picked up. So I think the level of detail actually varies from bait to bait in here, depending on what color you get, which is kind of weird, but nevertheless, you get what you pay for. All right, so this is a traditional kind of gold shiner right here. Got a decent finish on it. Like I said, this one's a little more high res than the other one. Still very, very cool. We have more of just kind of like an emerald shiner right here, standard kind of color right there. Very, very cool. Then we have this one right here, which actually has almost like a creek chub kind of pattern on it. Very, very interesting. And this one is definitely the most low res out of all of them. So this has a little bit of a blurry finish, but still pretty decent. Then we have this one right here. This is a shad color right here. Very, very cool. And last but not least, we have this color right here. This is kind of like a white bass color or a striped bass color right there. Very, very cool. Yeah, interesting. I haven't really used colors like this, like little striped bass, but that is very, very interesting nonetheless. So that is the pack of 5 by Watch a Lure. I gotta say, pretty decent for the price. Hopefully these things perform well in the water. If these perform well in the water, I'd say these are a no-brainer to have in your tackle box, just given the price point. But that brings us on to our last item in the video, this right here. Now, this is the only soft plastic swim bait pack that I picked up. The rest of these, like you saw, are all hard baits, but I wanted to pick these up because these intrigued me. These are also by Transcend. Like you saw earlier in the video, Transcend made this long minnow one, but this is a soft plastic swim bait, and these are actually rather large. It's a 5-pack. There's a number of different colors. Let's pop these open and take a look at it. All right, just pulling this out of the package, the first thing that I notice about it is the plastic feels very, very good. The plastic does not feel cheap. A lot of times when you buy cheap soft plastics, they have kind of this stiff, rubbery texture, but this actually feels very, very solid. And the color scheme on this, I really love this color. We have kind of a translucent minnow right here with kind of this orange underbelly. As you can see right here, this is kind of a traditional paddle tail minnow. We have a head up at the front with 2 eyes. Then the bait slowly tapers down to a thin tail and a boot tail at the end. Now, one thing I do notice about the boot tail is that the actual tail itself is quite thin. Personally, I like swim baits that have a little bit thicker boot tail, but nevertheless, this does not mean that this bait is junk. We'll have to put it in the water and see how it performs. Another unique thing that I haven't really seen on too many other soft plastic swim baits is that this bait has 2 little fins that come out the side. Now, these fins could simply be for aesthetics, but they could also help this bait track smoothly in the water. I'm not totally sure. We'll have to see once when we put it in the water. One other thing that's actually really impressive about this bait is the actual hook. It has a 2-pronged hook on the bottom, and it has a little magnet that actually keeps this hook standing in place, which I think is actually really, really nifty. It keeps that hook tight to the bottom of the minnow. That way, when a fish hits it, it'll be able to penetrate the fish's mouth and you'll get a good hook set. So overall, this bait actually feels very, very well built. I'm actually really excited to get this bait in the water. Again, if this bait has a really good action in the water, I could definitely see this bait being a great bait to throw for northern pike. All right, let's move on and look at some other colors right here. We have this color right here. This is kind of a silvery minnow with a green finish and a little bit of a chartreuse spot on there. Very, very nice, very cool. Then we have this minnow right here. This is kind of a classic translucent pearl with some nice fleck in there. Very, very interesting. Then we have this color right here. This is a chartreuse top and a pearl bottom. Very, very nice. And last but not least, we have this color right here. This is kind of a brown on top with a translucent belly, but there also is a bit of a purple flash to it when you roll it in the light. So very, very interesting. Alrighty guys, as you've seen, we've unboxed all of these swim baits. We've taken a closer look at them. Now it's time to put them to the test. It's time to take them out on the water and see what kind of action these baits deliver. Alrighty guys, so I had a chance to take these baits out, throw them around, test out the action, and here are my thoughts. So, starting off with the tiny little bluegill bait, the overall action on this bait is okay. It's not mind-blowing by any means, but it does have a decent swimming action in the water. However, I did notice that the bait tends to run a little bit on its side, and as you'll see going forward, there are other baits that have this same issue. However, this bait does have a nice little profile in the water. It looks like a cute little bluegill swimming around, and so if you're fishing clear water with a small bluegill, this bait would definitely catch you fish. Moving on to the minnow jointed swimmer right here. This was the bait that I was the most looking forward to throwing. I thought I would have a great action in the water, and sadly this bait was the most disappointing. When it comes right down to it, the action on this bait is okay, but I thought this bait would have a lot more of an aggressive swimming action in the water, and it has more of a subtle kind of flutter back and forth. Granted, this bait still looks realistic in the water. I just thought, given the amount of joints that are in this thing, it would have a very aggressive side-to-side action, and it did not. The major issue that this bait has is that it tends to run a little bit on its side when you're retrieving it through the water. I went ahead and tested the rest of the colors, and it seems like they all have this issue where they run a little bit on their side. So overall, the action is not that great, and they tend to run on their side. However, if you do fish this bait like a jerk bait, you will get some nice gliding action, so that is kind of cool. Moving on to the water lure swim baits right here, I have to say I was very impressed with these baits. Straight out of the box, they had an amazing action in the water. I would say the best action out of all of these baits. A very aggressive side-to-side action. Almost reminded me of a square bill crankbait. Very, very cool. Now, like I mentioned with these long ones right here, I did find one of these baits ran a little bit on its side, but all the rest ran perfectly straight. And that's one of the main things that you have to be careful for when you're buying these lures. It seems like quality control is a little bit over the board. And my guess is if you spent a little bit of time tuning these baits, you could probably get them all to run straight. And last but not least, the Transcend soft plastic minnows. Like I mentioned earlier, I was very excited to get these baits in the water, and I came away with kind of mixed feelings about them. So let's start with the actual action of these baits. These baits have a stiffer action than I actually expected. These baits have more of a rolling action that reminds me of a crankbait. That being said, the tail does kick. Granted, it's not the best kicking tail I've ever seen, but it definitely has some nice action, and the bait overall I think is pretty decent. One of the issues I ran into with this bait though is, again, running on its side. And again, quality control is all over the board. I had some of these that ran perfectly straight and others that kind of ran on their side. Although these are a little bit weird. It seemed like the faster you reeled them, the straighter they would go. That's usually the opposite case with cheap lures. If you reel them in real fast, a lot of times they'll start going on their side. But these, it seems like once you sped them up, those that ran on their side straightened out. So I've had a chance to take some of these baits out, throw them around, see what the action is like, and that brings me to the final question. Would I recommend any of these baits to you guys if you're looking for a cheap alternative swim bait? The answer is yes, I would recommend two of these swim baits. The first off being this one right here by What a Lure. These baits were some of the cheapest baits that I bought for this video, and the performance was absolutely amazing. I think value for money, these are a no-brainer. And they come in a variety of colors, and the overall action of these baits is just solid. Now let me just be clear, I don't know what quality control is like on these lures. You may buy a pack of these, and they may not be as good as the ones that I used. So keep that in mind when you're going to buy these, but overall I'd say these are definitely worth the money, and I highly recommend them. The second bait out of the batch that I would recommend are these baits right here by Transcend. These are the soft plastic swim baits, and the reason why I'm recommending these is I'm actually going to be using these in the coming fishing season to catch northern pike. Even though these baits don't have the best action in the world, and some of them may run a little bit on their side, I can work around that, and I have no doubt that a big pike would absolutely destroy this. If you're looking for a bigger profile, soft plastic swim bait style bait that's not going to break the bank, that comes pre-rigged, this is definitely something to look into. As for these other two, I really wouldn't recommend them. The bluegill, because it is actually quite overpriced. This is the most expensive single swim bait that I've bought out of this whole video, and overall the action was kind of meh. For $8, I feel like you could get something a lot better. And this bait right here, I had high hopes for this bait, but sadly it didn't really work that well. Again, I have no idea what the quality control is like. You may be able to get some of these that run absolutely flawless, but for me, the action wasn't quite as good as I was expecting, and they were having really big issues running on their side, and so for that reason, I can't really recommend them. If you guys want to purchase my favorite two baits out of this video, you can do so in the links in the description. Keep in mind that those are Amazon affiliate links, and if you buy anything through them, I get a little bit of kickback, and it helps me to make videos. Anyway, guys, hope you enjoyed this video. If you want to see more videos like this, where I take a look at budget-friendly fishing products, lures, whatever, let me know down in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, stay hooked. I'll see you later.